So when you go to universities, what I tell people is that it is supposed to help you to learn how to learn.
Oh, wow.
Yes, you should learn how to learn. That's what the university system should do to you. That you now know you can create a system of learning. There's quite a lot of people in Lagos, over 20 million people in Lagos, which is about 1/3 of the population of the entire Kenya. If you're a lizard in Nigeria, you can't be a crocodile in the US.
True.
You're still going to be a lizard. Africa is actually rich. We're rich in mineral resources, we're rich in human resources. Africa has a lot of potential. Money has several principles. Money goes in exchange for value. Whatever value you create, money comes as an exchange, whether you serve God or not.
My good people, how are you wherever you are? Today is a special day. I have a special guest with us here on set. And in the next few minutes, we are going to have a conversation that I believe is going to be really informative and transformative in nature. I really believe that you are going to watch this up to the end, because towards the end, there are some information that we are going to talk about that may really change the way that might really change your life forever. Let me give an opportunity to my guest here to introduce himself.
All right, my name is David. My full name is Ilaria Yoadebi David. I'm from Lagos, Nigeria, technology consultant, and I'm glad to be here. I'm in Kenya, and it's been very cold, but I've received warm welcome from very nice Kenyans. Thank you.
Welcome so much, David. Maybe you just give us a brief. How do you find Kenya?
I can say that Kenya is been very welcoming and hospitable, especially Nairobi. I've had a lot of people welcome me very warmly. I mean, there's tea in every house. There's tea in
Wow.
every high school that I've been to as well. And it's been very, very nice to see lovely people. I know there's been a lot of issues with the government, but I mean, it's been so calm in where I stay in Kenya. So I'm really glad to be here.
What is your take on? I believe that yesterday we had demonstration in town, and I know this is something that you either follow through. What do you think about Kenya just having experienced that?
Well, I said to somebody, because I've seen that Kenyans are very calm. For this to have happened, I mean, for the demonstration and the protests to have come at this time, it means something must be really wrong. For Kenyans to come together and say no, and it's very legal to express your rights. It's very right to to stage a protest, and it's not illegal. And I'm fine with what I'm seeing. It's been peaceful on my end. I've spoken to a lot of young people who participated in the demonstrations, but I've only seen that they want the best for their economy and for their country, which I support.
Okay. One thing that Kenya is known for is the chaos in town, especially to do with traffic, matatus. And this is something that I know that Nigeria also experience it. What is your experience compare between Kenya and Nigeria? Uh,
Well, yeah, a lot of people told me to be careful about the matatus, and in Nigeria in Lagos we call it downfalls.
oh,
And I understand that it might be a bit different here, but Lagos is a very fast-paced economy. Some people say it's the economic capital of Africa, and there's a lot of hurry. Sadly, so I've witnessed a lot of chaotic movements. On the streets, on the roads with the buses. Which is called matatu in Nairobi. So it feels a bit calmer in Nairobi here. I know a lot of Nairobians will not agree to that, but I tell you, I've witnessed some very terrible demonstrations from bus drivers and bus conductors. But in all, I think it's because of the race to make a living and an earning. There's quite a lot of people in Lagos, over 20 million people in Lagos, which is about 1/3 of the population of the entire Kenya. So you can understand how that is in a very small land mass. So you can just tell there's a lot of hurry, there's a lot of race, there's a lot of struggle and hustle in Lagos compared to any other place in Kenya, in Africa. But I've only experienced calm and peaceful environment in Nairobi.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Will you please kindly share with us what has been your philosophy in life, something that has been the driving factor to everything that you do, and maybe you just tie this to your story, maybe how you were raised and how you up to this point where we are today.
All right. So big in my life is my faith, my Christian faith. I'm Christian. I was born by Christian parents in a Christian home, um, and I was raised that way with values. So I'm a Yoruba boy, and one of the things that a Yoruba person is known for is respect. All right, we really honor and respect people. You know, when I came to Kenya, I think I had a culture shock when I saw young people greeting elderly people with a handshake
Uh,
and with a hug. You know, it's not the common thing in
okay.
Lagos, in Nigeria. What we do as Yorubas is we prostrate, you know, when we see elderly people and you dare not call them by first name. So I was raised, you know, with having in my value system respect and honor and love for God and love for man. So I'm a Christian. I treat very seriously and very importantly my faith. I don't joke around that. You know, I also preach the gospel to people. I share the word of God with people, help them in their life in fulfilling God's purpose and God's plan. Yeah. So my philosophy is following God because God created all of us. I mean, God is the creator of everything. We find our purpose in Him, and that's what drives me in life.
Oh, it's really amazing. You know, you've spoken about something that I think it's not really common in our Kenyan culture. um, how you address the elder people. And if you've been here, I think you are sure even the president is not respected. They will call him by name, and actually he has so many names. And I think this is back then we had this culture where elderly people are respected, and most of the time you realize that they will be treated in a certain way. But as time moves on, I think this is a culture that is shedding away slowly, and then now people are becoming common with every person. So that kind of respect, maybe it's fading away slowly. But now you've spoken about faith. And I believe that the question that most people are having is how can faith be integrated with their business life, with their career life? Because you'll find someone who has a strong belief in faith will not really be that passionate about what they do in terms of career in business or things to do like that. And they will base their argument. The Bible says that it's so hard for a rich man to enter heaven.
Mm,
In fact, it compares it to a camel. So, how do you find it, or how do you integrate your faith and your work?
mm. I think that's a very good question, and I've actually seen a lot of people, young people, you know, have issues around this aspect of life. But the truth is, riches and faith are not, I mean, they're not opposites. God doesn't want you to be poor. Now, I'm not saying God wants you to be rich. What I'm saying is that, you know, being rich or being poor doesn't take away faith. So faith, you can be faithful, you can serve God, and you can do well in your career. You can do well in business. In fact, you should be exemplary to people in the things that you do. The Bible teaches us about working with your hand, you know, that which is good. And you know, Jesus had people who were wealthy around him, and he
Yeah,
didn't condemn them. You
true,
know, there were also people who were poor around Jesus too. You know, Paul as well, Apostle Paul, he spoke about rich people, you
true.
know, and so God doesn't negate or God doesn't stop you from having wealth. But a
Mhm.
lot of people have misunderstood that when you're serving God, you're probably going to be broke, you're probably going to be poor. You know, in fact, many people think that that's the symbol of service to God.
True.
But you know, it's a I think it's a wrong mindset
Mhm,
of how money works and
mhm,
how wealth happen, you know, comes to be. I tell people that, you know, for instance, the richest person in Africa is Dangote,
mhm,
and Dangote is not a Christian.
mhm.
All right. Money has several principles.
Yeah.
Money goes in exchange for value.
Mhm.
Whatever value you create, money comes as an exchange, whether you serve God or not. That's the
Mhm.
way it works. So money is not a faith thing. Now, does God provide? He does. God provides. God does meet our needs. But it's very strange when you see faith as an avenue to make money.
Oh, yeah.
The Bible teaches against that. Some people, use faith as an opportunity to amass wealth, but that's not the way, things ought to be. So for young people, they should understand that you can serve God very well, effectively, and you can also make it in your career. You can be successful in what you're doing. It's very possible. And there are so many examples, within Africa,
Yeah.
of people who have that. And, if you're in your career as a Christian, for example, I am expected to be diligent in what I do. If you're diligent at your work, there are results for that. The Bible says, do you see a man who is diligent in his work?
Yeah,
He will
yeah.
stand before kings and not mean men.
Mhm.
If you're diligent, whether you're Christian or not, it applies. And I've seen people who, are Christians, and they use their Christianity and their faith as an excuse for not being successful. That's completely wrong. So you see a Christian who is lazy at work, you see a Christian who doesn't even want to, improve on themselves, a Christian who doesn't want to learn a skill, a Christian who doesn't want to, just put himself out there and
Yeah.
show his work. When you don't do all these things, you're bound to get poor. You're bound to not have. Paul himself, he showed an example to his disciples. He said that I have worked with my hand and I have met my needs and the needs of those around me. So
True.
Paul had something. There were times where he got broke and people also met his needs. God does meet our needs through people.
True,
But
true, very
he instructed, in fact, Paul said something in one of his epistles. He said, let the thief steal no more. That means there was somebody who was a Christian,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he was stealing.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of person will probably say, God is not blessing me, or God
True.
is not providing for me. So there are Christians who do all manner of things and expect to be wealthy. No, it doesn't work that way. You go to school so that you can learn things, so that you can learn a skill, so that you can, have understanding of how things work, and so that you can put those things to use in life. But you see, in school, we have Christians and non-Christians. Whoever learns those things and applies them in life will get the reward. So that's what I think about riches and wealth.
I think you've spoken about something that I think is very important, that success is not really dependent on your faith or your religion, but it's more of understanding the principles and being diligent. And the Bible, I think, gives when you read the Bible, you'll find so many places where it guides us on how we need to go about our work. And first of all, you realize that the Bible says that whatsoever your hand finds to do, do it with all your strength. Do it as if you are doing for God and not for man. And it also says that in the morning sow your seed, and in the evening let not your hands be idle, which really speaks about the issue of laziness, that if you want to do something, then put all your best.
Mm.
It doesn't matter, just make sure that do whatever it takes, master everything that you need to master, and just see how you're going to progress or to work around that. Now Africa is really known for its big it's big. Africa is really known because of its faith and religious activities. And the question that really most people ask themselves is, why is Africa poor? And yet they most people understand that God is the creator of everything, He gives everything, but this context does not apply in Africa. And you realize that now the church or those people of the faith are becoming each day being a point of attack or ridicule just because they don't have the kind of results to show or to substantiate their faith, because they say that I believe in God, God is the provider, I believe in God, God gives me the ability to make wealth, to generate wealth, but these things is not working out. Maybe you can just speak on that issue about Africa and how, as African people, we can be able to come out of this cocoon that you are in.
All right. So because when you say Africa is poor, I believe you're referring to the world's ranking of poorest nations.
Yeah,
So because Africa is actually rich. We're rich in mineral resources, we're rich in human resources. Africa has a lot of potential. In fact, when you see in today's world, you find for instance, the Asians are coming to Africa, the Americans are coming to Africa, the Europeans are coming to Africa because they believe that there is something there that they can take and they can use. So there are things in Africa that some Africans are not seeing. The opportunities, for instance, I was at the conference in Lagos a few weeks back, and the US ambassador to Nigeria was giving a talk, and he said something. There's a statistics that he put out there that by 2050, Nigeria will be the third most populous nation in the world, surpassing the US.
Wow.
And the US is coming into Nigeria, strategically positioning themselves for how they can, benefit from these things. Now, when you are able to see the opportunities, you're able to tap in. So a lot of times we see, people, say that Nigeria, Africa is poor, but it's because they're not seeing the opportunities. And I don't blame, many people for that. We've had leadership who has not helped the nations to thrive and to grow. For instance, somebody asked me a question, and the person said that we have Nigeria has the richest man in Africa.
Yeah.
But we also have some of the poorest people in Africa and even in the world. So wealth is not evenly distributed. And for instance, you'd find somebody like Dangote again, whom I respect a lot, go into a lot of businesses and is thriving. So many people have accused him of monopoly, where he's controlling the market. And while things like that happen, but I believe there are opportunities that we are not seeing and we're not able to utilize. There are technology, I'm a technologist, and there are technology companies, that are unicorns in Nigeria. What does that mean? It means that they are $1 billion company. We have several of them in Nigeria and even in Africa. It means that there are opportunities people are tapping into while some others are not seeing. Maybe they are uneducated or uninformed about that. But as soon as you get enlightenment and you see what other people, because many times, people say that you don't know what you have until you lose it. In this point, Africans are not seeing what they have, but other people are seeing those things. In Nigeria, there's something we call Japa. Japa means that you are living for greener pastures. You're traveling out of the country, yes, to make ends meet. And I've interacted with people who have, in that form, who have jackpot, and their lives are not better off. There are people whose lives have been better off. But somebody said something that if you're a lizard in Nigeria, you can't be a crocodile in the US. You're still going to be a lizard. So if you can't make any, good use of what you have, it will be hard to make good use, because look at it, as an African, you have freedom to do certain things in Africa. You can start a business in Africa, you can start an enterprise, you can, get properties, you can invest. But when you go to the US, you are a foreigner. When you go to Europe, you're a foreigner. Now, many people whom I have seen, I know there are other people who are thriving, but there are cases of people, lots of people they go into these foreign countries and they are doing very menial jobs. They're working in restaurants, they're working as cleaners, they're working as factory workers, and they cannot really tell you the truth because of all these things. But what I will say is that Africans should begin to see the opportunities. Sometimes you need to partner with people, to harness these things that are existing. And that's what these people these Westerners and Asians and Europeans are doing. They're coming here, they are seeing that there is mineral resource here, and they are positioning themselves. How can we make good use and take advantage of these things? China, for instance, I hear that China is, amassing properties in different parts of Africa. I even heard about, some other nationals come into Kenya and they have their own, separate place that belongs to them, but they're foreigners, so they are seeing things that we are not seeing. You can even look at it this way: the Americans, the Chinese, and all of these people, because sometimes there is an uneven, there's an imbalance of currency.
True, true.
So these guys, they are seeing something that we're not seeing, and they are bringing their monies to come and invest. but we are the ones that understand our system. What we can do is we can understand that these guys are migrating to Nigeria. We can begin to, in fact, reverse that trend and now begin to utilize their resources, their funds. For instance, you can partner with them to establish certain things that they're coming to do here. They don't understand Africa like we do. When they come into the country, can you position yourself as the one who, for instance, in the hospitality industry, who helps them settle in, who helps them understand the terrain, and you charge for those services? And as you begin to see those opportunities, you begin to thrive. You begin to see what they're seeing. You begin to expand your network, and then you have foreign investments coming into what you're doing. So I think that when we see problems, I see opportunities. There's a lot of opportunity. Africa is so green that we are yet to uncover the bulk of it.
You've spoken in your explanation. Something that has come up is a systematic kind of mindset. And what do you think the education system has to do with creating this kind of system where we are more focused on what we don't have without really looking at the opportunities available here? And maybe just also to speak on the broader perspective of how, as an individual who want to excel in business, or a person who want to excel in career, can be able to change or to shift that mindset. What are some of the things they can be able to do so that they can move from this
Mm.
systematic mindset that has been created?
Yes, education is so important. In fact, I'm very big on education. I go into high schools. I have people who I mentor who are also students. I encourage them to do well in their education, because you cannot. You need to learn. Our brain is supposed to be used. All right. If you're not learning, you're not growing. And in life, many people think that education stops when you leave the four corners of the school. But education even progresses beyond that, beyond the four corners of school. You're supposed to be a continuous learner, especially in this day and age. Education never stops, really. Learning never stops. So, I think that this system of understanding where you have a lot of people who are unlearned. You have If you check, if you just do a Google search and find how many people are educated, you will be shocked to see that we have a very low number of people who are educated. And what we can do is encourage people to go to schools, encourage people to be part of learning institutions. Once you're I have a lot of people, I have a lot of friends who have gotten education, some of them from within Africa, some of them from outside Africa. But every time when people get educated, their minds are exposed. They see things differently. They see things that are there but they never saw before. So that's what education does. It opens your mind. Somebody said something about universities. That when you go to the university doesn't necessarily give you a skill, because people say that, oh, I want to drop out of school
Yeah.
because I'm not learning. I want to drop out of school because what I'm learning here is not useful for the outside world. It's I can relate to that. I also schooled in Nigeria, and I did computer science. So some of the things we learned were not useful, outside. But it depends on how you see it. All right. You can understand where you are and use what you have at the moment. So when you go to universities, what I tell people is that it is supposed to help you to learn how to learn.
Oh, wow.
Yes, you should learn how to learn. That's what the university system should do to you. That you now know you can create a system of learning. That's one thing that it gives to you. That you know that, oh, this is how I can learn this. This is how I can learn that. And if you build a system of continuous learning, you won't see university as the problem. You won't see your old curriculum as a problem. Because think about it, in tech is very fast moving. Every day there is an update on your mobile phone. If you check the apps on your phone, you see that one app is updating. And when there's an update, it means you're keeping things up to date. The rate at which technology is developing, no curriculum can capture that. So if, for instance, in 2025, 2024, 2025, we have an AI boom. How fast can your curriculum catch that? It's not going to catch that. You need to learn as you go. So you must build a system of learning around yourself. It could be by reading, reading updates, reading news, reading blog articles. It could be by going for conferences, going to, seminars where you're being lectured around these things. So learning must never stop. We must build that culture of continuous learning. Even as a technologist, that one is non-negotiable. You either learn or you die. Like they always say, you evolve or you die.
True.
So I think education is very important, but we shouldn't be stuck at complaining that our education system is broken. Our education system, if you keep complaining, I've seen people in the US, I've seen people in Europe who have reached out to me to teach them certain things. Now, these things, I didn't learn them from the university, but these guys, if you see many of them, they're in the universities. And you may think that their education is better than ours. But I've schooled in Nigeria, and these guys are schooling in Europe and in America. But they are reaching out to me because also I'm a cloud native engineer. I'm one of the ambassadors in the cloud native engineering space. And you see these guys reach out to me. I've had many of them to come mentor them, to come help them, train them. They even invite me to come speak, sometimes at their conferences. What that means is that, don't think that somewhere is better. Use what you have and you would see that success will follow you.
Amazing. You've just talked about the value of learning,
Mm.
and I've read a book by Dr. Carol Dweck, and she talks much largely on mindset. And one thing that comes up is that the mind is malleable and thus has the ability to expand and adapt. And the mind which has been exposed to a new idea, experience, will never be back to its original place again. And I think this is something that the value of continuous learning brings about. And I believe that this is what has also given you the room to be even here in Kenya, because I understand you came for a tech conference as one of the speakers and facilitators there. Maybe just tell us a brief what is how did you come to reach to this place where you are today, understanding the competitive nature of the tech world and how things are moving so fast to the point that now you can be trusted to come and guide other people in this journey.
All right. I could write a book on that, but I'll just speak, as briefly as I can. So I came for a conference called AWS Community Day Kenya. It's a gathering of young and, enthusiastic community builders in the cloud computing space, particularly in the AWS cloud computing space. And I was invited to come speak in the area of Kubernetes, which I'm very passionate about in my field. But a brief background. So I am a technologist, I'm a cloud native engineer, I'm a cloud native consultant. I consult around technologies, different technologies. I also have a computer science background, and I'm very passionate about education, like you said. So I one of the systems I've built around myself in continuous learning is that I share what I learn. When I learn something, I speak about it. And the more I speak about the things I'm learning, it helps me internalize and reinforce what I have learned. So I often volunteer to speak at conferences. Spoken at different conferences, both within Nigeria and outside of Nigeria, both in person and virtually. And so when I saw the AWS Community Day conference come up, there was a call for speakers that they made, and you get to apply to speak and you get selected or not. So in Nigeria and in Africa, I have this dream of championing cloud native computing in the continent. So, when I began to learn about a technology called Kubernetes, I began to explain these things to other technologists. I began to teach people. I was very passionate about because when I teach, like I said, I also learn. And so I saw that a lot of people were reaching out to me. A lot of people, were reaching to me for consultations to speak about these things, to tell them how this thing works. And so I became a community builder in that field, tech community builder in that field. And I began to host meetups, tech meetups, where technologists will gather together, will share on a topic, we'll have practicals and all of that. And then eventually applied to become an ambassador of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. Currently, we have about three of them. I'm one of them. And so I had a bigger goal and a bigger vision to champion this technology in Africa. And so when I saw AWS Community Day Kenya come up, it was a no-brainer. Oh, I could speak at this because it's part of my goals, it's part of what I have set for myself. And I just decided to apply, and I was invited to come speak at this conference. And we had the conference at KCA University in Nairobi, where I spoke about, Kubernetes. And it was very exciting for me. It's first time in Kenya, in Nairobi. And, I've loved every bit of it.
Wow.
I hope to, be in Kenya again. And when I leave Kenya, I hope to come back again and again, to speak about technology. Like,
Now, David, you have given us you've given us a good way of how you've moved all the way up to here where you are. But maybe someone is asking, what are some of the habits, the daily things that you do each day just to make sure that you are at par, and also to make sure that you are not kicked out by technology, because I know that is something that can happen anytime.
yes, indeed, indeed. Habits are things that you do regularly and consistently. Um, and I'll be very honest with you. I won't say I have all the good habits that you can think of. There are some habits that I'm trying to change, but there are some habits that have helped me, to get to where I am in my field. Um, for example, let me even mention this. There's a book by James Clear. It's called Atomic Habits, and he said something. He said, "Good habits make time your ally." And time is opportunities. In other words, when you have good habits, you can make use of opportunities in the proper way. So for me in my field, one of the things that you must do regularly is you must keep yourself up to date. So what I do is I read different things. Now I'm not a very good reader of books. All right. Maybe it's because I'm in front of screen a lot of time, which I am trying to build. I'm trying to build a habit of reading books, more now. But I read a lot. I read a lot of research. I read a lot of, development. In my field, I try to keep up to date with the latest releases. For instance, if I'm working with Kubernetes and I'm keeping up to date with the latest releases in that industry. So I read a lot on what is happening. I watch YouTube videos, I listen to people who talk about the things I'm also learning and things I'm also, passionate about. So I spend time learning by reading. I spend time learning also by speaking with other people. So I speak to people in the field who are doing what I'm doing, and I get to keep myself up to date in that way. And you'd agree with me, technology is moving very fast. I mean, something you learn today might be outdated tomorrow. That's the industry that we find ourselves in, and you must keep yourself up to date. So I spend a lot of time reading things. I spend a lot of time educating myself in my industry. I spend a lot of time speaking to people in my field. You can find me on my computer for hours, and I may not be necessarily programming or coding. What I'm doing is I'm just learning. I'm learning. I'm taking in information. I'm keeping myself up to date. I'm listening to, sometimes it could be on social media, and I use social media in a different way from many people. Now, whilst I use social media for entertainment, but I also use social media to keep myself up to date. So if I'm reading a book by an author in my field, I follow them on social media. I'm reading their thoughts. I'm reading the things that they're sharing about the book they've written. I'm seeing their interactions with other people, and I'm asking questions. I'm reaching out to them. I'm speaking to them. And in that way, I'm just keeping myself fresh on those things that I'm learning. So, keeping myself up to date with what I'm doing, the kind of habit that I've built is to read articles, read blog posts, and all of those things. That's how, that's one of the habits that I have. Of course, there are other habits that I have that I'm still trying to get better at, and I'm trusting God to help me in that regards. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Now, I want you to look at this camera and just speak to someone outside there who is struggling. Maybe he's in college, maybe he's just started out in his or her career, Maybe he wants to start a business, but he feels stuck. What are some of the practical advices that you can give to such a person to help him or her just rise up and do something?
All right. If you're in that category, I will tell you not to lose hope at all. I mean, in anything, whatever it is, never ever lose hope. There is always an opportunity for you. So, first of all, change your mindset. Don't think negative. Don't think that it's over. Don't think that because you failed. Failure, if you change your mindset about failures, you make progress. If you see failures as the end, then you won't grow. That's a negative mindset. But if you see failures as a stepping stone, because trust me, Steve Jobs said something. I mean, there's a philosophy in Apple, the organization Apple, and they say fail fast. What that means is that you try something and fail, but fail quickly so that you can learn from that and move on. All right. Many of the researches, many of the technologies we use today, they were built on failures. They tried something, it didn't work out. They learned from that this is a way not to do it. So when you fail at something, you have learned a way not to do something, and you'd continue to improve yourself, continue to try things out, continue to experiment. As a young person, one of the things we have is energy, and it's at a young age that you're able to experiment. But if you lose hope, you won't be able to try new things. So open up yourself and see possibilities. You can succeed in the business, you can succeed in career, you can succeed as a Christian, you can succeed in faith, you can succeed. So never ever lose hope at all. That's my advice to you.
Thank you, David, for such a wonderful advice. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a conversation that has been eye-opening. And the question I want to ask you, what are three things that you've learned from this conversation? And what are you going to start doing starting from tomorrow? Let me know in the comment section. And if this is the first time you're seeing this, make sure that you subscribe. We are going to bring you more interesting stories, more topics that you're going to learn so that we can elevate and grow together. Until we meet again, bye for now.